I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but, it just seems as if, to me, it seems like a completely disjointed policy, and that's why I want a numbers person to either confirm or disprove that the picture I think I'm seeing is actually what is there.
Like I said,
He coordinated the collection of data of food from 12 cities in this country over the last 3 months. He coordinates it every month, has been doing it for 3 years. Now they shout, so...
I don't see anything wrong with importation of rice. We cannot meet our own demand here. We cannot. 9 million tons of rice. We're producing less than 4. Well, it's not even 4 million. It's less than 4 million. So we need something to cover up the shortage.
Let's hold that thought. A tech policy researcher from Georgetown University, Grace Alex, pitched in yesterday with some words of hers, and let's just get her take on the show before we come back in, because there's a very important question that I want to ask Cheta, but let's listen to Grace first.
So on the total closure of Nigerian borders, I consider it really, really sad. The Buhari and Osibanjo-led administration have proven time and time again that the common interests of the Nigerian masses are not who they serve, and would wake up every morning to take decisions that are really biting. It's as if to say that they are pushing us to the point where people have to literally come out forcefully to talk about them being beaten or being downtrodden by a government that they've elected into office. That said, it just shows that the federal government came out on Twitter yesterday to say the reason behind the total closure of the Nigerian borders. They cited that security agencies have come together in unison to say that the borders are porous, and that has resulted in the conflict that they've been witnessing, especially within the northeast region of the country. Now, they also cited that there are other reasons for closing the border, which includes importation of banned products, rice, imported vehicles, used clothes, which the used clothes is one I have an issue with. So let's address this let me just take this in two parts. Now, for the security reasons the government cited, that is a real reason to be conscious of our porous borders. But now they've absconded the responsibility and made it a reason for citizens to suffer the overall effect of the lapses of security intelligence. The borders are open for a reason, for transactions to occur within, African regions. But what is happening right now is that we are kind of combining both security issues and also trade issues to combine to one, and causing a total, serious situation that the Nigerian government has not been able to use data to understand what the impact of their decisions are going to be. Now, I do understand that the federal government is kind of pushing for self-sufficiency, but the sad and damning part of it is that there is no real data to show that the government has done anything in regards to improving infrastructure for textile, for agriculture, or for independent production of vehicles. The government has not shown either with its body language that it really has intentions of intensifying infrastructure. We have a federal government, a president who had within his past tenure, traveled outside the country for medical tourism. These are real issues that should be addressed. What are the political elite class enjoying with privileges that the poor masses cannot enjoy in peace? Now, back to the used clothing items. Nigerian textile industry is relatively dead. Yes, we do have local designers who are making really beautiful pieces, neck deep from importing materials that they actually have to use if they need to make good quality items. Now, the federal government has not tried in any way to provide infrastructure or, revive an industry that was very prominent in the past due to the cotton cultivated in the north. And it has decided that it's going to close its borders to use clothing, things that the poor masses can only afford just because they have been subsidized for the masses to be able to afford. And so these are the real issues we actually have to be looking at. The government does not have data to show the biting impact of these things to the Nigerian populace. It's going to be really, really sad. I mean, it started from importing of milk, importing the real things that the political elites know that the poor masses can only afford if they are subsidized through bringing them through the Nigerian borders. And so, it's sad because this same federal government is signing a treaty with other African countries and ECOWAS to say that there will be free trade within African regions. And this is just a 10 steps backwards from that aim that is originally trying to, pursue. And I just really hope that the Nigerian citizens see that the more they keep mum about little things like this, the serious, policies that are more endangering that the government will be emboldened to pursue, because they really realize that, for the Nigerian man, you just have to keep pushing more buttons and seeing if he endures it. And if he does, then that's fine.
Cut through the bulb with Red Tape Africa. Follow us on all social media at Red Tape Africa and tweet at us using the hashtag Red Tape Africa. Red Tape Africa. Economic policy impact in plain English.
You're still listening to Red Tape Africa, David Hundain. I'm with my guests Cheta Nwanze and Stanley Ikechukwu in the studio. You just heard from Grace Alex, a Georgetown University tech policy researcher, with her take on the border closures. Now, before we listen to Grace, there was something that I was going to ask Cheta, and I'm going to loop that in now. So, something very important, which I think slipped beneath the radar in the statement released by the Customs Controller General yesterday, was he made mention of security being more...
It didn't slip beneath the radar. And this is, I make no bones about it, my favorite news organization in this country is Premium Times. And they proved me right again yesterday because they caught it. It was so while every other person led with the fact that the border was going to remain shut and that the closure was going to be even more severe, they led with what he said, that security is more important than rule of law and human rights. That statement was a redder flag than these red lights that is flashing about in this studio. It's a huge red flag. So, what people need to understand, and this is what these guys don't get. A lot of people believe that the government's most fundamental duty to the citizens, a lot of Nigerians believe that the government's most fundamental duty to the citizens is security provision. It's not. It's adjudication. Let me explain. There are 5 of us in this studio right now. If the 5 of us go into some form of or let's say we're just locked up here to exist and work together, live together. At some point, natural human behavior, there will be a dispute.
Yeah.
We will need one of us to act as the arbiter to resolve that dispute. In enabling that person to resolve that dispute, we will surrender some form of sovereignty to that person in the form that we will all accept what his decision is. That is the building block of surrendering the instruments of violence to an authority. Because when you give an authority the right to sit in judgment over you, then that authority has the right to enforce that judgment. In enforcing that judgment, it has instruments of coercion. When it has those instruments of coercion, then it has to be paid to do that job full time, which is where things like taxation come in. The moment you start being paid to protect, then you now have to expand it to provision of life, as in other words, infrastructure, security, everything. That's the basis on which a government is formed. So what he has done here is he has put the cart before the horse. Adjudication, rule of law. You cannot have provision of security without rule of law. Human rights falls under rule of law. So if there are no rules of engagement, which is the scope of rule of law under which human rights falls, then what are we talking about? Provision of security. Does he think we're in his mind we are in a police state?
I mean, what I really caught from his statement,
bear in mind that this is a man whose position is subject to the Minister of Finance, which is in turn subject to the National Assembly. He snubbed the Minister of Finance entirely while Kemi Adeosun was Minister of Finance. He refused to appear before the National Assembly in uniform as required for that position. That man is completely arrogant. And these are the kind of people that we're enabling.
And that the real problem I had with that comment, apart from the human rights aspect of it, which was problematic enough, was that it again signified to me that this is yet another African government that seems to believe that the economy should be subject to the state. Or more specifically, the economy should be subject to the security apparatus of the state, which is something that historically has been a problem in Africa. So it seems that Nigeria is going down that Mobutu, Paul Biya, so many.
What I would say is Alea Iacta Est. We've crossed the Rubicon. That's what I think. With things like this, because basically what has happened is that a certain group of people now believe that they are above the law. And not only do they believe that they are above the law, they act that they are above the law. So the natural human instinct is for other groups to try to be above the law like them. Nature doesn't like a vacuum. So when you show that you are above the law, other people will want to be above the law with you. You can see it in the humiliation they are meeting. That particular group of people is meeting out to the first lady. You can see it in the.
That's a whole.
It's outside the scope of this because that is for an entertainment podcast. That's Big Brother Nigeria. That's the real Big Brother Nigeria. But the point is, all of that is impunity. And that is where the problem is. A culture of impunity, people who genuinely believe that no laws apply to them.
Including the laws of economics. Well, you know what the funny thing is? When did Adam Smith write The Wealth of Nations? In the 16th century. In the 18th century. It has never failed. Ever. The market will win. Of that I am very sure. The problem is what will be the cost to Nigeria. And you just mentioned the cost, and obviously who better is there to tell us what the cost will be in naira and dollar terms than the person sitting in front of me. So let's have something.
No, actually the cost is incalculable at this point in time, and let me explain why. In 2014, the size of the Nigerian economy was just over $500 billion. The size of the Nigerian economy now is $386 billion. So the Nigerian economy has shrunk by almost 40%. That's a cost that you can't. So at this stage, until the next GDP numbers, we can't calculate it. So there are so many things there are so many moving parts. Inflation is on the up. It's going up. Unemployment is still going up. Even finally, the Minister of Labour admitted on Monday. Today is Tuesday, but so it was the day before that we have a lot of unemployed people looking for jobs. It's just that he tried to, again, this whole thing of a cat walking around the real issue in order to please he